ocean power. Okay. So what about bioenergy? Bioenergy has two types of bioenergy, you can say. For example, if you are using biofuels like biodiesel, that's also the bioenergy. Gobar gas, that's also bioenergy. Okay. So here the problem is with the bioenergy is eventually on burning that generates greenhouse gases. What about the hydropower? Though that's a renewable energy, bioenergy and hydropower is also renewable energy, but still hydropower, as I told you earlier, that eventually leads to deforestation. And wind, solar, any of the solar, whether that's solar thermal means that's a solar water heater and all those things. So these things are, you can say that it's a green energy. Now you can see that the top four things like solar PV, solar thermal, geothermal, and marine. What's the contribution to that? It's very less when compared to hydropower and bioenergy. So that's what actually we are looking to increase. So decrease the bioenergy, hydropower when in renewable energy, and increase as much as the green energy sources. So it doesn't mean that that's our priority. Our priority is to reduce the usage of fossil fuels. Okay, that we will discuss later. Okay. This is the global scenario. So when we look more into it, so you can find that 2023 projection also. So in the projection, what you can find is we have reduced the biofuel. It's not to a greater extent, but slightly. But still, we have increased the wind energy considerably. Okay. So at least that kind of things, if we can achieve in the 6 years, that's a projection part. That will be still that's achievable, but from the public side also we need cooperation and support rather than never go with the perceptions. Okay, let's have a detailed look on that later. Okay. So this is the case when it comes to the global scenario for different countries. Okay, this is a projection part. What we are saying is the first one is the European Union, okay, China, United States, Brazil, which I'll discuss about India later when it comes to our national scenario. So here you can find among the total, you can find that hardly when it comes to 2017, the European Union concerns, you can find that almost more than 30% of renewable energy they are using. Among that, you can find that the solar PV and solar or the green energy part is somewhat considerable in nature. Okay. So when it comes to China, also the same thing. But in China, when it comes to China, China is projecting, their projection is somewhat on the positive side or on the higher side when compared to 2017. In 6 years, what they are anticipating is a larger advancement on this category, green energy category. Okay. So in the United States, we can't see much impact on any of these green energy things, though that's increasing obviously. And Brazil, why we are taking Brazil is the BRIC countries like Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Okay, these BRIC countries seems to be one of the major among the other countries. BRIC countries seems to be the major players of the total carbon footprints, like Brazil, China, and India. Okay, I don't think that that's any politics involved in that, like Trump used to say something like that. All the Asian countries, especially India and China, they are responsible for a considerable amount of carbon emissions. It's not like that, but that's a fact, unfortunately. Okay. So this is the global scenario. They are driving towards, or some of the countries, especially, and International Energy Association, they are looking forward to drive the entire region towards a greener energy. Doesn't mean that the entire energy source will be replaced with the green energy, but as much as we can. That's a consideration. I hope you got a better idea about the proportion or the contribution of green energy to the total energy scenario. Okay. So when we move to the Indian scenario, what you can find is here. Let me just minimize these participants' videos or even my video. Okay. So What we are saying is this is the last year that's a approved thing by New and Renewable Energy Ministry. That's a 2019 March. Okay, that's the last fiscal year. Okay, so India source-wise installed power generation capacity in megawatt as on last year 2019 March is being given. So here you can find almost 63% of the power is being generated by thermal. Okay. So that's the alarming fact. That's the reason why even that's don't think that this is a scenario for India alone. Entire BRIC countries, uh, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, the scenario is not that much different. So this 63% is making us somewhat on the feary side. Okay. Because thermal power obviously increases the pollution, and eventually that leads to a deterioration of uh, life quality and air quality. That's and the nuclear obviously that's nearly 2%, and hydro that's constitute 12, nearly 13%, and 22% is being renewable energy. So at least we can see that, again, we can feel that a couple of decades back, or even a decade back, this was very low. Okay, so the past few years, you just exclude the past 5 years, but after that, it was doing much good. Okay, at least we could be able to achieve 22% of renewable energy contribution. Among that, you should understand the renewable energy, majority of the chunk goes to the wind and solar. Okay. This is the Indian scenario. India seems to be on the, you can't say that's on the better side, but we are not the bad. So this is actually the statistics provided by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Okay. So wind energy, the achievement in 19, what we are saying, it's 2000. These all things are in megawatts. So almost 3 gigahertz we could able to achieve through wind, and nearly 10 gigawatts to solar power. And the third one is the most important thing, solar rooftop, because we will discuss about those things later. Solar rooftop projects, how much government of India is investing, and the penetration of it to the public. But still you can find that hardly we are struggling to achieve even in 2019. So you can say that in 18-19 seems to be one of the best time for new and renewable energy. Still we couldn't be able to achieve 1 gigawatts of power through solar rooftop. Okay, that's also a matter of concern. You'll get a better understanding how it is. So you should understand one thing is it's a accumulated thing. In 2019, this 814 megawatts, among that, rest almost 50, that constitute 50% of the entire power scenario. Cumulative achievement you can see on the right hand side. In fact, you can find here on the right hand side, you can find the cumulative achievement. It's 1796.36. That's a cumulative. Among that, almost 50% is being contributed in this year. So that's what I told. I'll tell you the reason also why so. Okay, don't find any politics in that. The main reason is the rise in fossil fuel costs. Okay, you got a better idea about it. Okay, we shall discuss it later. Okay, so in small hydropower, we are not considering this micro hydel project as one of our main portfolio to generate electricity, but still, because the problem is not even in Kerala, in majority of the states, micro hydel power is not that much viable, and return of investment seems to be on the lower side. So hardly many of the governments, they find it a bit pessimistic on those investment. Obviously, biopower, gasification projects, gas-based cognition, everything is a waste to power. Waste to power. Some NGOs and some companies, some startup companies, NGOs, all those things, they worked on waste to power projects, but still that's not considerable. One thing I just want to tell you is waste to power is shown as 0 in the last financial year. Actually, that's not 0, but that's under purview. Some amount that will be revised and will be published later. It's a non-zero value. Please keep that in your mind. So we shall move to the technical aspects. Okay, so we shall move to, let me again, these things comes on my slide. Let me move to the right side, put it here. Let it be comfortable. Okay, so technical aspects when it comes to the thing is power sector, generally carbon dioxide emissions fell almost 1.3% in 2019, but still account for 41% of the all energy related CO2 emissions. We could be able to achieve. A reason for it is also very simple, because the larger installations of green energy and renewable energy resources, people start to invest a lot. You can find the nuclear generation, like Kutankulam, that contributes a lot. The decline was somewhat offset by 2.5% increase in natural gas fired generation. Okay. So natural gas fired generation has been installed in many area, or even captive power source also being run by natural gas fired generation. Natural gas, obviously fuel cost, fossil fuel cost has been increased considerably. That's the fact. But still, what happened is many corporates, I don't want to say something like that, many corporates, they have the rights to import hydrocarbons, to say crude, or even the refining process. They are getting something for free, and they are utilizing it as their, to meet their energy sources, energy needs. Okay, captive power sources they are running, some of the corporates, especially when they have a cement plant, or if they have what to say, metal plants, melting units, or even with what to say, steel plants, something like that. Maybe in majority of these things are being installed there in Karnataka and the southern part of northern part of Karnataka and the southern part of Maharashtra. So eventually that thing is, next is the reduced power consumption. That's one concern. Okay, power consumption has been reduced considerably because of the global slowdown. As you know, it in a much better way. We are now, the entire globe is actually experiencing a slowdown, economic slowdown for the past couple of years, and we also became the part of that. So the consumption become reduced, no doubt. The power consumption means, that doesn't mean that power consumption, the consumption of the people on commodity has been reduced. Obviously that results in the power consumption also, because without power, without the commodity consumption, there's need of power consumption. So these all accounted in eventually 1.3% reduction in CO2 emissions. When considered to an India like developing economy, developing country, obviously we are developing. It's not going to stop at all. Okay. So developing country, this reduction, though that's 1%, we may not see that that's 1.3% is a very menial number, but still that is an achievement that we have to understand. That's the scenario for us. Okay. We could able to, especially this will be a considerable count when we think about the pollution levels that we are experiencing in majority of the metro cities, especially like probably you know the situation there in Delhi, right? Pre-lockdown period. Fortunately, lockdown came. So let's move forward. We shall mainly focus much on, because of the time constraint, we shall much focus on the technical aspects of wind and solar. So wind energy, its own advantage and disadvantage. One thing is it's having noise. Obviously, you can find that majority of the wind turbines are doubly fed induction machines. Okay. So that generate noise. It doesn't mean that that will make a bigger noise like diesel engines, but still that will produce noise, since that's a moving parts involved in that, obviously. So that create noise when compared to solar energy. Don't get confused with that. And when it comes to location and integration options, we have the technical constraints like generally this one I have taken from Zeslon and Vesta's integration white papers, since I'm not an expert of wind energy. Okay. So it says that it was 30 feet above anything within 500 feet. So that range. So installation should be somewhat on the elevated way. So elevation doesn't mean makes much problems to us, but its mechanical stability and the foundation makes an important role. Okay. So that also costs. So in general, what I want to tell you is about the location and integration options is with the wind turbines, the installation time to commission a project will be on the higher side when compared to the solar energy, because we have to make the foundation. From there, we have to pivot and give the installations. So the time to hit the market, power to hit the market, time frame will be on the higher side. Okay. So for an investor, this also makes a lot of difference on his investment, because that also plays a vital role in the payback period. Okay. IRR and all those things comes to play on this time to hit the market, product time to hit the market. Okay. So when it comes to durability and maintenance, gearbox maintenance is required because the moving parts are involved. Direct drive and double fed induction machines, you need not bother much about it. I think hopefully mechanical people knows it better. Okay, gear drives and allied mechanisms needs to work much closely for the maintenance team. Okay. And the lifespan generally we are anticipating is 20 to 25. And in India, I have seen a few papers from Vestas that in India they are anticipating and projected values is something like 30 to 35 years of lifespan for a wind turbine in any standard wind farm. You can find standard wind farms there in Ramkan-made and all. Okay. I actually, the reason why so they haven't mentioned. Okay. But generally we can say this they have derived on an average value 20 to 25 years, quarter of a century, that will give the lifespan. When it comes to solar energy, there is no question about the noise. Anyway, that's a static equipment. Location and integration options, generally no need to think about the elevated platform and all those things that sometimes may be needed, but still only the thing is you have to go for a better tracking mechanism. The tracking should be better, something like you have to face towards south and all those things. Apart from that, there is not that much location issues. A shade should not be there. That's general concerns. Moreover, that can be laid down, or that can be resolved by a common installation procedures. Okay. Durability and maintenance, 30 years of lifespan, that is expected to be. And after 20 years, it is expected that 80% of the power only will be derived. Okay. So 80% of the power will be derived after 20 years. That means almost after 66%, almost after the two-thirds of the lifespan also, that can able to deliver 80% of the power, provided that has been maintained properly. So that's also an advantage. But still the problem is with any of these things. I'll tell you one thing frankly about the wind and solar. What's the main concern is when it comes to this thing, if you are storing the energy, well and fine. Like if you are installing a wind for your purpose, like rooftop, you can store it, nothing wrong in it. But when you go for a grid connected systems, installations, the problem is this, for the grid, it's a bit difficult, or that pose certain risk on the stability, because when it becomes shared, abruptly the load prediction mechanisms need to be changed. Okay, you can't say that even in summer also we can anticipate a lot of clouds on a particular region only. Maybe in 100 square meter also you can find a particular cloud even in peak time of summer. So that eventually, even in, usually what we are anticipating is in every 15 minutes they'll go for a load dispatch mechanisms. So this eventually go out of prediction when suddenly the input has become reduced or even increased. Okay. That's a problem with when it comes to the grid connected systems. Okay. But still, you can overall with time, with a better prediction algorithms, etc. I just told that uh, for the knowledge of especially electrical engineers. When it comes to the economic aspects, I don't want to make you bored with a lot of things, because the economic aspects of green energy itself is a bigger topic. Okay. So I'll just quickly go through this. Okay, let me put this. Okay. So here, macroeconomic aspects, gross impact, and you can find some net impact. So variables you can analyze on this: growth, GDP, welfare, employment, trade balance. Okay. So in the macroeconomic aspect, these things we'll discuss. Okay, I'll tell you. GDP of a country very much depends on the utilization and installation of green energy. Okay. Why so? That we will discuss in the next slide. Welfare also we will discuss in the next slide. Employment part I shall discuss here. The thing is, employment part you can find that when we go for installation, for example, on an average, what you are anticipating in every megawatt, at least 10 to 15 based on the geographical area, 10 to 15 of the people will be employed on an average. Okay, right from the installation and to maintenance for wind turbine, and the same thing will be 8 to 10 people for solar also. So larger employment, more employment options comes into play. So new sort of employment options. Okay. So the data, and the trade balance means that's a, as you know, now I think the situation is the time where I'm speaking now may not be the right time to speak about it because of yesterday's Indo-China conflicts. Okay. But to comes to Indian economy, Indian scenario, majority of the imports on solar or when it comes to wind, we are importing that from China. So that's a trade pact. Doesn't mean that that's just economical, just for that's just beneficial for China only, but that's for India also, because China will get the benefit of that trade, obviously, but India will reap better benefits of that, since that's for a longer time. China will get the commission, China will get everything, China will get a profit out of that, and eventually Chinese government exchequers will get benefit out of that on tax collections. That's all fact. But when that has been imported to India, what exactly happens? We are using that for 20 to 30 years. Our greenhouse emissions will be reduced, and moreover, that's another business as well as employability options we are creating here. Okay. That's a trade and employability considerations. Okay. Then distributional effects, types of owners, region distribution. So majority of these things, at least till now, we are anticipating that these are owned by government or quasi semi-government organizations. Like what we are expecting, we are not anticipating that any of the private operators, or even if you have money, if you have crores of money to invest also, none of the individuals are ready to invest it on a solar farm or a wind farm. We are anticipating like just like ZIAL at Cochin Airport or someone else, they should invest it, and at least that way they can let them reduce the CO2 emissions in future. Okay. So ownership, region distribution, where you have to impose. We may say that we are not ready to give any space for that. Even on lease basis also we are not ready. Then energy system related. So please keep all those things in your mind, and at any point of time, you please note it down. At any point of on any parameter. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask at the end of the session. Okay. So energy system related effects, benefits and costs, variables of which and additional generation and balancing costs. So these things comes into a vital play, because generation, till now what we are saying, green energy sources should be increased as much as we can. On the other side, we should understand one thing is the energy consumption is somewhat on the static side. It's not exponentially rising. So if one mode of energy is being increased, that means some sort of another non-economical sources. Non-economical means doesn't mean that that's not value just with money. Non-economical in all aspects or non-beneficial sources of energy should be reduced. That sometimes make some sort of socio-economic impact in the society. Additional grid and transaction costs. So additional grid and transaction, I hope at least electrical engineers may be much known to this fact, because carrier charges is involved. For example, I think some of our corporate companies, they have installed a few wind turbines on viable areas. American made also. I think even some of our private companies in Kerala also they have. So what they are doing is they are generating power there, and they are taking the power from there to here, if you want to consume it here, by giving carrier charges to the grid owners. Right? Generally in southern India, only private owners are not available. Only state-owned power companies are only available. You can give the carrier charges and you can take the power to here. Okay? Or you can sell there and take it here. Okay? So this grid and transaction costs also being involved in that. Externalities that may or may not be associated with the policies, government. Additional effects, variable for future risk reduction and others. Okay. So here installation for risk reduction doesn't mean that a risk is being involved in that, but the thing is sometimes we may reduce the less risk options and offer higher risk. For example, if you reduce the thermal power and to go completely with the wind, if the allocation is like that, and if you haven't made any contracts with the thermal power station, if suddenly if the grid, if the wind contribution reduces, what will happen? Obviously, that's a risk associated with that. Okay. So these are the risk, but risk mitigation methods are also involved in that. That you need not bother. It's a general discussion on scholarly view. That's the reason why I told. Okay. So economic aspects, I think. Okay. So economic aspects, three major things we can club together. How it will be involved with the technology we shall discuss. That's emissions, economy, energy. Okay. Three is how that can interact with the technology. So you can find that all these things ultimately converge to economic aspects. Okay. You can find we shall start with the energy. Energy is being used. You can find here one arrow. If energy is being used, that creates emissions. Okay. Similarly, here, okay, let me put this thing on the right hand side. Here you can find upon energy use, price and taxes involved. For example, you can find that in your energy bill as provided by any of these boards, Kerala State Electricity Board or Tamil Nadu Board, whatever it is. You can find one more component named GST or taxes. That contributes to the economy part. And here in the emission part also, generally sometimes we used to levy on some norms. Okay. Emission trading or environmental taxes we may even sometimes impose. Okay. So that emission part also will come to the economy. So these all are considered as then economic additions, or that's the inputs to the economy. So when it comes to technology, generally technology is considered as a consumer of economy, or that will not generate any revenue as such. Instead, that consumes revenue. Like we have to give funding to the technology for a better technology, and technology will yield it back on a longer run to give better economy. That's a vicious cycle. Okay. Energy price tariff and pollution abandonment equipment also. Okay. So this vicious cycle goes as such. Okay. This goes. So this will yield a positive outcome if and only if the balancing between the economy energy emissions comes into play. And what we are trying to do is the emission outcome should be reduced, okay, along with the economy impact of that thing and energy consumption. Okay. So there should be a balanced way. If any of these things go out of the balance, that will make some adverse effect. Just like the way we used to say something good too is not good. Okay, that way. So the economic aspects, we can just conclude our main points since we are running out of time. Okay. The increase in global GDP, that's what we have discussed earlier. I told you we will discuss detail here. So obviously the green energy resources, larger consumption of green energy, increase the global GDP. You can say that renewable energy is doubled to 36%. Okay. So it's almost 236% is being doubled. In that case, 18 to 36%, 200 times, 200% has been doubled from 18% to 36%. That actually increases a GDP, global GDP that we are taking on an average. I'll tell you why it has been reduced. That's given in the third line. Okay. Increases by 0.6. Now you may be thinking, though that has been doubled, the GDP increase, global average of the GDP has increased only 0.6. Why so? So why should we invest and why should we take pain? That may be the thing now you are thinking. I'll tell you the reason why. So larger investment of green energy, a substantial reduction of fossil fuel inputs. That's the one advantage for countries or majority of the countries, because majority of the countries across the globe, they are importing fossil fuels from some countries, like 4 or 5 countries across the globe. Okay. Like Middle East countries, Venezuela and Russia, they are importing from many of these countries. Even Kenya, Nigeria and Kenya is also into that list. Why this 0.6% GDP is? The third point you can find Saudi Arabia, Russia, Venezuela. Among that you can add Nigeria and Kenya also. Face a drop in GDP due to the green energy installation across the globe. You could able to understand, because as green energy installation increases, the first thing impact will be on the consumption of fossil fuels, because majority of the countries, the driving or the motive behind installation of green energy at a higher cost also is nothing but to reduce the carbon footprint. So when they reduce the consumption of fossil fuels, obviously the producers of fossil fuels, like producers like Saudi Arabia, Russia, Venezuela, they face a pressure on prices, just like now they are facing. Even drastically, the hydrocarbon prices came down drastically. So that impacted on larger countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia. So the global GDP reduces accordingly. That's the one reason. And when it comes to socio-economic impact of this thing, economics will not sustain as a standalone entity. It obviously makes some ripples on the society also. The positive society, the positive impacts I have mentioned here on green color, and the negative impact that is given in the red color. So the positive impact is lesser pollution leads to lesser government spending on public health. You know it's better, right? Because you can find that in the last couple of years on newspapers that the nebulizers. You know about nebulizers, right? Asthma patients, especially small kids, they used to, when they have asthmatic, they find it difficult to breathe, suffocating. They used to nebulize. When you go to hospital also, hospital used to nebulize. Okay. Nebulizer kit was the hot cake in Delhi because of air pollution. Okay. Obviously, government spending on public health also will have much impact when the public health is on the risky side. Just like the way COVID. has been increased to a greater extent. So lesser pollution leads to lesser government spending on public health also. Okay, that's the positive part. Okay. So negative part of it is drop in demand of fossil fuel will impact especially the Middle East economy. We know that, especially in India, some states like Kerala or Punjab, they'll be have some negative impact. When the NRIs returns, that's another social issue. They will lose the job, the salary will be reduced. That's another main concern. That's one of the negative socio-economic impact. Third one is the most important thing. Obviously, you may recall the concept of PURA that's put forward by our former President, Dr. Abdul Kalam. PURA is, I think some of you probably knows about it. Providing urban amenities in rural area, that's what PURA. I'll just, since we are running out of time, okay. In 2 minutes, I will just tell the concept of that thing. So in that, what he is saying is why people, the population density is higher on the bigger cities. The reason is very simple, because the people on the rural area, they are looking for better amenities and they are migrating to bigger cities. Better amenities doesn't mean that it's a refrigerator or a conditioner or fridge, but better amenities includes better wages or salaries. So for example, if you are in the interiors of Andhra Pradesh, say one classic example, if you are taking some place like Rangareddy district in Telangana, hardly 50 to 100 kilometers if you travel, you'll reach there. Okay. But if you travel 100 kilometers to Hyderabad or even Secunderabad, you will get the salary almost double than that of you're getting there in the Rangareddy district. From rural to urban, people are migrating for better salary and better amenities. So what our former president was envisioning is, by 2020, we should be able to provide urban amenities in rural area. Okay. So that's what that divide should not be there. That's what we are envisioning. So ad hoc power generation units, let's come to green energy. Ad hoc power generation unit for remote rural area will change the social landscape of rural India, obviously. Now you may have heard a few news like what to say, we have television, we have mobile phones. Unfortunately, we are unable to charge it. We don't have electricity. In Kerala, it's much easy. You can just take the connection from the nearby post or something like, you can give the connection. But you just imagine, in Northeast or the remote area, the power distribution network may be nearly 50 kilometers away from that particular area. How the students, they can survive without that? How the people can survive without electricity? So set up ad hoc generation units, power generation units, like small turbine stations, microhydel, or even solar energy, or even solar panel. You can rooftop solar panel you can install, and that will produce a self-sustained power economy and social setup. That will change the entire social landscape of India if you can be able to penetrate to that extent. Okay. That's what generally we have to look for, especially as an engineer. We have better commitment. We should have better commitment towards the society. We can touch the lives of the society. Okay. So let's move forward. Okay. I'll just quickly, this one is the social welfare. So social welfare, household consumption and economy-wise investment, material consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, all those things will become reduced. So obviously the public health will be increased. That eventually makes a lot of savings to the society as well as the people well-being of the society, and government spendings on public health also will be reduced, and that will make a cleaner and healthier society as such. Okay, I'm just going through it. Okay. So the challenges involved, this may be the one good thing you can think about it. Okay, so the payback period for solar and wind, I'm just discussing about, because I have discussed the technological aspects of green energy only with solar and wind. just thinking about the payback period or IR, internal rate of returns for solar and wind only. So when it comes to solar, it's 10 years and wind, it's for 7 years. So these are the IR and payback period I'm discussing in India, in an Indian scenario. But one interesting fact is, all these things are 2 years lesser for the US. You know why? I hope you know about the payback period, right? At least mechanical and electrical engineers knows about it. Payback period, internal rate of returns, break-even analysis and everything. Okay, payback period means on a particular investment, how much time it will take to get it back. Okay, from which point onwards you will start getting profits. If you install a solar power plant, 10 years is the time. After 10 years, your investment will be realized. After that, what all things you are saving, that's the profit. And wind energy also 7 years. How we are calculating, I will quickly go through the calculation part. How we are calculating this payback period. For example, if the payback period, for example, what to say in India, the per unit power cost, to say that's 5 rupee or 10 rupee for the sake of calculation. Okay, 10 rupee, and you are using the solar power 100%. And if you are a consumer who are using 100 units of power in a month, that means you have to pay 1000 rupee in a month as power bill. And upon installation of solar power, you are not paying anything. So every month you are saving 100 rupee. Sorry, every month you are saving 1000 rupee. So every month you have 12,000 rupees will be saved. And if your installation costs 1.2 lakhs, in 10 years you will be getting the total investment without any interest. I'm not making it complex with interest. But in US, why this 2 years less when compared to India? The thing is, the power cost is higher. Relative power cost is higher in the US. That we should understand. But we used to complain a lot about India, like the fossil fuel price and everything. But the scenario is like that: no pain, no gain. Okay. Next is the main challenge is the fossil fuel cost. Still, the fossil fuel cost is attractive in India. I think a lot of protests. I think you may not be entertained with this thing, but fossil fuel cost is less in India. So we are reluctant to move from fossil fuel to green energy. One classic example is, have you ever thought why electric vehicles are not preferred by the common people to that of the petrol or diesel engines? Though we used to complain a lot about petrol price hike and diesel price hike, because it's very clear, electric vehicles are costly, and some people now I think it's the maintenance part is okay, well and fine, not that much issues. Now it's almost mature technology because smaller vehicle manufacturers are also comes into play, and it's somewhat matured, and the power outcome is also good, I believe. Okay. But the thing is, always we compare with the lower options, lower economical options that's available. So if the fossil fuel cost increase to say it's 100 rupee, I agree you, at least 25% of the people will choose electric vehicles. And even when it comes to government also will start to think about shutting down of diesel power plants because of the higher price. That's one aspect. So fossil fuel cost increasing is good in many aspects, to a very great extent. This you can club with one aspect, like how we gone out of what to say our incandescent lamp culture. We were using incandescent lamp for quite a long time. What had driven the public to move from incandescent lamp culture to LED lamp culture? Is that just because of the awareness among the people? No, of course not. It was just driven with the economy. You should understand one thing, incandescent lamps still cost nearly 10 to 12 rupees. And even a LED lamp costs nearly 60 rupees. 50 rupee difference is there. You can't say that it's a 50 rupee difference, but 6 times more, 5 to 6 times more, 500 to 600% you have to pay more for incandescent lamp. But, sorry, not incandescent lamp, for LED lamps. But people prefer a lamp that's of higher cost just because of the fact that in a longer run, they can save energy. They can save energy. That's the main motive why they have moved from incandescent lamp to fluorescent lamp and compact fluorescent lamp and then LED lamps. That was the appreciation that provided by the scheme. For example, if you just imagine, if the power cost was just 25 paise per unit, no one will move from incandescent lamp to LED lamp because they have to, the initial investment is higher. Almost 6 times you have to invest, isn't it? Nowadays, people, what do you used to do when you go to buy an air conditioner? You'll go and check the star rating of it, isn't it? As star rating increases, the cost of the air conditioner with the same tonnage increases. Sometimes it may double. Inverter air conditioners, because star rating and inverter air conditioners, energy saving mechanism, all those things, we have put an eye on that just because of the fact that the fuel costs are on the higher side. We need to save. Similarly, fossil fuel costs also going on the higher side, that eventually encourage people to move out of the fossil fuel, out of the hydrocarbon economy, and to reach a non-renewable as well as green energy sources. I think it's the outlook of the public that you can read along with what I told now. And policies also very same thing. Policies of the government. Generally, though government gives a lot of policies like to encourage the usage of this thing, but still that policies are not reaching the common public. These are the challenges. Okay. Among that, the bigger challenge that we are facing nowadays is the fossil fuel cost. Unless and until fossil fuel cost increases, it will not drive people towards a greener economy. Don't take that in any bad sense or anything, but that's the fact. Everyone knows it. Maybe after a decade or so, we may do the very same thing. And next comes to the implementation and opportunities, and Ministry of New and Renewable Energies is India submitted intended national determined contribution INDC UNFCCC planning 2020 climate actions. So I'll just go through the most important thing. And we have a goal by 2022 is 175 gigawatts of renewable energy. Among this renewable energy, almost 85% of it, what we are anticipating is from green energy. So that's a good move set by Government of India. 2030 target increase non-fossil based installation electric capacity should be 40% instead of 20 to 30%. And IMDC aim to reduce greenhouse gases 1/3 of it by 2005. In 25 years, it should be reduced to 1/3. And National Solar Mission, person and the National Action Committee Climate Change, that has been in 2010, that has been commissioned exclusively for solar energy. Till then, it was almost like in the energy things that comes under the hydrocarbon ministry a long way back. And the last one may be interesting for you. That is almost 36,000 Surya Mitras has been trained. Surya Mitras are nothing but Government of India with the NSDC. They are training as technician for solar installations and wind energy technicians. Okay. That's the employability options. So employability option doesn't mean that 36,000 is altogether that's an employment arises, but that will be offsetted by some of the job loss on hydrocarbon trees over the lifetime. So while you install a rooftop installation like this solar installation, it's equivalent to you are planting 98 teak trees. Just imagine the impact of that. Okay. So that's the case. Okay. So it's always prefer you to go along with that. That's your responsibility towards the society. Next is transportation. Obviously, fossil fuels and greenhouse gases being emitted a lot with transportation facility, and electric vehicles is one option. I believe electric vehicles has been taken as a separate session by many experts. I don't want to spend time on it. And this is what envisioned by Government of India, our Honorable Prime Minister, in 2018 in International Solar Alliance told the future of OPEC is the International Solar Alliance. OPEC, I hope you know about OPEC. That's an organization of petroleum producers. So International Solar Alliance will be considered as the OPEC of the future. That's what our PM told. So one world, one sun, and one grid. I hope you got the point. Okay. So next is query resolution session. So if you have any queries, please unmute and ask. Feel free to ask. I think meantime, I shall just go through the chats also. I think we already ran out of time. Do you have any queries, any doubts? I think one thing is about the government aids. That's what actually I told. In government aid, you can go to the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. On every state, you can find some agencies for implementation. Like in Kerala, you can find ANERT. The government aids will be government aids will be implemented through ANERT. If you have any queries, feel free to ask.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Mr. Hello.
Yes, sir. Sir, there's a small question here.
Okay. Okay.
Is there any government aid, sir, in a very simple form so that we could set up a renewable energy plant?
Yeah, that's what I told. It's okay. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, they are dispersing a lot of aids to set up solar as well as wind farms throughout the state across. The thing is, there will be certain agencies in every state to implement that. For example, in Kerala, you have ANERT, Alternate Energy Agencies there by Government of Kerala. So you can give application to ANERT and they will implement with the help of.
Okay, sir. So we could do that during that particular form. Sir has shared that particular format.
Yeah,
so we can use it, right, sir?
Yeah, you can estimate it and go for it.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other queries?
Sir, ma'am?
Morning, sir.
Yeah, hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, sir. Myself, Marwa.
Hello, ma'am. Sir?
Yeah, hi.
Another question is there any other software?
Software for what, ma'am?
for solar and wind energy system design?
Solar and wind energy system design, I think we have in PCM, you can find a few modules, dedicated modules on paid version for solar installation, solar design. And I think the newer versions of MATLAB also dedicated modules for that. Apart from that, you can find NI's dedicated solar installation design or something. It's there anyway. It's there. But right now you can use a PC modules for that. And when it comes to wind energy, the things are entirely different. Majority wind energy designs includes with the mechanical designs that you can do with any of the mechanical design platforms. Dedicated templates will be there and dedicated parameters will be there, just like the way we used to design, go for softwares like machine design in electrical engineering.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is another question here. Can you please guide us with the government agencies in Kerala and the carry scope?
In Kerala, to my knowledge, government of Kerala has one agency called ANERT is there. You can, ANERT has nodal centers across the states. In every, probably in all the district headquarters, you can find ANERT office. You can go there and give the application. I don't know whether that has been made online nowadays. ANERT agency will be there in all the states. They used to disperse even solar lanterns on also. Sometimes for free based on your income and or basis also. Solar lanterns on even solar water heaters.
Thank you, sir.
All those things.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Proceed.
I would like to ask a question about the solar energy.
Okay.
Recently heard about like we can install solar energy at the rooftop and we'll be able to use for our household things. At the same time, if excess power comes, we can even give to KCB. So how
that's a grid
effective,
connected one, right?
Yeah. So how effective is that, and what are the procedures?
SCB or Kerala Electricity Board has one option that's Urja Mitra, I believe. And if you just go to any of the section office, Urja Mitra is much renowned projects across India also. It's a grid connected system. They will install a grid interface device also in your home and go for solar, rooftop solar installation. And the power will be actually fed to the grid itself. And that will be billed and you'll get the amount and you can consume power as like you are using from KCB grid. And the difference in the power cost only you need to pay. So the total power bill will be reduced. The other thing is if you just install, it's not a non-grid connected thing. The advantage is when power goes also you'll get a backup because you are using a battery. But unfortunately, the problem is you should have a storage device then. A battery you should equip. So the battery you need to maintain then. So the cost of battery also comes into play.
Okay, so if you are installing it, will the government do that or privately we have to?
Actually, all these implementation part, though that's done by government, will be done by private agencies. For implementation, what you can do is either you can, but the problem is, you see, if you go to any of the private agencies, it's a higher probability you get cheated. Some agencies may approach you and say that, okay, we will do all the paperwork, we will do all the procedures based on you give some service cost, something like that. It's okay. But the credibility concerns are there. So better you go to the section office, KCB section office, and they will guide you properly. You can just contact any of the executive engineer, they'll guide you properly for Urja.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have Hello.
Hello.
Sir, just share my point of view, sir. Just to tell about your opinion.
Okay.
Sir, nowadays we all of them talk about the electrical car.
Okay.
But my point of view, sir, our government will not show the much interest to encourage the electrical vehicles, sir. What I am saying is because our government is making more revenue in terms of the petrol and diesel taxes.
Okay.
So suppose they implemented the electrical car, they encouraging the electrical car concept means how they compensate the tax losses, because the government is depends mostly on the taxes, especially in the terms of the petrol and the diesel taxes.
Okay, I will tell you a few things about these things when you think critically. How many of you think that our electric rail network, I think nowadays majority of these electric engines, they are running, majority of these locomotives are running on electricity, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So how many of you think that that reduces emission or pollution? That I'm asking you globally as India. The problem is, if you just imagine, it's consuming energy from electricity, but unfortunately, the electrical energy, majority of the electrical energy is being produced by fossil fuels. So, though we are consuming energy from here, at some point of other places, they are generating electricity based on fossil fuels. So, unless and until I'm not substantiating any of these policies, but the thing is, unless and until, if you want to reduce the pollution, at the generation end itself, the electricity production should move to green energy. Apart from that, if you just, for example, if you have, as you told earlier, if you just give subsidy to electric vehicle, you know one thing, we in India till 2012, we used to give subsidy to hybrid electric vehicles. One classic example for Maruti Suzuki's hybrid engine for Zias, 1 lakh rupee subsidy was given. I think that has been ceased from 2013 onwards, I believe. Just because of the fact that there is one expert committee report says that that will not make much sense on electric because the energy saved on hybrid vehicle is nearly 20 to 30%, but the power generated by the power generated for electricity generation is majorly by thermal stations. So unless and until we move to the electric generation also to green energy sources, giving subsidy to electric vehicles will not make much impact on CO2 emissions. But still, I believe it's better give some sort of subsidy to electric vehicles to change the mindset of the people, or to make a culture of moving on electric vehicles rather than petrol or diesel engines. You can change the mindset by giving the subsidy. Fossil fuel, you just leave about the politics and everything. The only way to discourage people from using more and more fossil fuel is to raise the tax. No other way. I can't find any other way other than what to say. Because right from my childhood, I am seeing the very same thing. Save every drop of petrol. That kind of things are there. I don't know how many of you are saying this petrol. Even I have seen many people who are just putting the car on idle and using the AC and sitting there for half an hour.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other queries?
Hello, sir.
Okay, I think a few concerns. I don't know whether a few queries on the chat box I have seen, like one thing is about someone asked about the Pura. I think I have given a small glimpse on that. Pura is providing, it's the expansion of that, providing urban amenities on rural area. That's what I told, because our former president, Dr. Abdul Kalam, what was his concept was the population density in majority of the countries have taken explicitly the studies that's taken from Mumbai area. That means almost 30% of the people are migrants or floating population, just because of the fact that why they are there is for better opportunities as well as better revenues for them and better opportunities. So if you can migrate, or as a government or as a system, if you can provide these amenities in rural area, people will not migrate from rural area to urban area. So we have a numerous projects for that. In the past 1 decade or so, numerous projects has been implemented by various governments, state governments, central government, everything. That means to penetrate or to encourage the entrepreneurship on rural area. Like if you are in a rural area, separate subsidy schemes will be there. If you are starting a software company in a rural area, separate subsidy schemes, everything are there. I think those things are being done in Kerala majorly, because I have seen a lot of software companies in interiors of Kerala, right from in Vandiperiyar, I have seen a couple of software companies. Iringalakuda, I have seen a couple of software companies. So apart from Cochin or Kozhikode or Trivandrum Technopark, I have seen these kind of things there in these kind of rural area. So that penetration is somewhat is being done in Kerala, but unfortunately in rest of the states, I'm very much doubtful about that. That's the main concept of Pura. Providing, P means providing, U means providing urban, U urban, A amenities, R rural, A area. That was the concept. You can, I think on Pura, he has written a book also. Some other co-author is also there. You can just search on the Amazon, you'll get that. And if you have time, you can just read it. I think that's almost 350-page book, 350 to 400-page book. If you have time, you can read it. That would be helpful for you to understand Pura. So if there is any other questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Miss. Okay, one more question. I think that's there in the chat box.
Irfan, do you have any question? Please raise the question.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello, Irfan.
Sir, I am studying BTech electrical student. So final year.
Great. Okay. Fine.
So there is any scope in the solar and wind energy system in job area?
Yeah, that's what I told actually. In solar and wind energy, almost 36 of these Urja Mitras we are trained by Government of India with in conjunction with NSDC, National Skill Framework, and they are on field. That's a technician field. So similarly, since that's a technician means they are looking for ITI as well as diploma holders for that.
Okay.
And you can work on Zyslon or Vestas or any of these companies as a technician. But when it comes to the higher end, that's engineers and all those things. Better you go for graduate engineer. Better you go for some design courses on that. Obviously, since that's the one of the, at least after 5 to 6 years, that will be one of the job providing area, the large scale job providing area in India. So obviously there will be a larger employment opportunities there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I think someone asked about why can't we go for solar instead of Adirapalli. So I don't know about the regulatory as well as the government policies on that. But I will tell you one thing. Solar and Adirapalli, obviously, from the entire discussion, we can find that we are not considering the hydroelectric energy as a green energy. Obviously, it's preferred to go for solar. And electricity boards, almost all the electricity boards nowadays, they are even installing floating solar panels on all the dams. Even Kerala State Electricity Board also did so. 2 to 3% of the production coming from that solar panels. And the dam and all those things, whether to be or not to be, that's a different call. We can't do much about it.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, sir.
Hello, Mr.
Bibin, sir. Can we now close the session, sir?
Yes, yes. Yes. Hello.
Hello, Bill.
Sir, good afternoon to all of you. We extend our most sincere thanks to Dr. Anoop Mathew, sir, for imparting vital information about techno-economic aspects of green energy. And we are fortunate enough to hear from you, sir. The session was very informative with beautiful slides, and it seems that you have done a lot of efforts to make all those. And as you said, reduction of carbon dioxide can be considered as generation. That is a wise perception. We feel like that. And you have given a good insight to wind and solar energy industry. And you have well explained the challenges, pitfalls, implementation, and its opportunities also. And you have well explained the energy emission economy vicious cycle also. So we appreciate every bit of your presentation, and we are immensely thankful to you, sir.
Thank you.
Special thanks to our principal, Dr. Sangeeta ma'am, for being the catalyst that stimulate us to do our best and stand as a pillar of our strength. Thank you, ma'am. With deep sense of appeal, I thank Dr. Kavita Mitigation, HOD CSC, for her relentless effort to organize the event. It has been our pleasure to host all participants. I extend our sincere thanks to all participants for your valuable presence and involvement. Together, we shall spread the light of knowledge and renew our obligation. So, we will be sending feedback forms to your mail IDs. When you fill those forms, you will be receiving your certificate also. If there is any queries regarding the certificate, you can just call us or just put a message. Thank you all.
Okay, nice time with you all. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. It was nice.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Shall we end the session, sir?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Nice meeting you, sir. It was really informative. Bye, sir.
Bye-bye.